I'm going to read this for the first time, and I'll give you my hot takes on this as we go. So, no difference between psilocybin microdosing and placebo trial finds. So now, personally, I have done microdosing, and I've extensively documented differences, dosing, and effects. And I can tell you right now, there's definitely the idea that there would be no differences at all. I find that impossible to believe. But I'm going to read this. We'll see how the study works, and I'll figure this one out. With psychedelics well and truly hitting the mainstream, scientists are finally subjecting many anecdotal claims to the rigors of clinical research. The phenomenon of microdosing is one of those well-known psychedelic practices that many advocates ardently suggest leads to numerous improvements in well-being. Myself included, I would say microdosing has a lot of benefits. Despite its prevalence in popular culture, the idea of microdosing is relatively new, characterized in detail little more than a decade ago by James Fadiman. The practice suggests tiny perceptual doses of psychedelic drugs can lead to enhancements in productivity, creativity, mental well-being, and energy. So the idea is you take enough to feel like something, but not enough to feel any like you're high, basically. So it's like a mood enhancer. The key to microdosing is repeated small doses, usually once every 3 days for a few weeks, and psilocybin or LSD are mostly common. The most common psychedelic drugs microdose. I don't know about the once every 3 days for a few weeks. I've heard 3 days on, 3 days off. I once every 3 days. Okay. Doses are usually no more than 10% of a standard psychedelic dose. Okay, so this is the thing for me that as someone who's been definitely doing a lot of mushrooms lately. 10% of a standard dose. What is a standard dose? 3.5 grams? Is that what a standard dose is? Why don't they give you numbers here? That's my problem here. 10% of X equals Y. Well, okay, so what's X? What's Y? What? I don't. Okay. And it's important users garner no acute perceptual hallucinogenic effects from a given microdose. Basically, if you feel like you're tripping, then you have taken too much. Despite the popularity of microdosing, it's still unclear whether the practice actually works or is just a glorified placebo. Very little clinical research has so far tested the phenomenon, and a few studies have been published to date to indicate microdosing may not be doing much at all. Now, again, is it it all depends on the dosage. That's really, for some, a microdose, if you're doing like a literal one speck of fucking mushroom dust, you're probably not going to feel anything, and you might feel a placebo. That's possible, right? It all depends on the dosage, and that's why these kinds of studies I've always found to be very I don't get them, because they almost never use an actual standard dosage. The new study is among the first to use a double-blind placebo-controlled design to test microdosing. The European study looked at whether psilocybin microdosing led to improvements in emotional processing and reductions in symptoms of anxiety and depression. Over 50 subjects participated in the crossover trial, completing a pair of 3-week testing blocks. For one block, the participants took 5 to 7 psilocybin microdoses. In the other block, they were given placebo capsules. On 2 occasions during each 3-week block, the participants came into the lab to perform a variety tests. For someone with dyslexia, the writing here is not making this easy. Exploring creativity, emotion, perception, and other aesthetic feelings. So again, this is another thing. I want to know what these tests are. What is the tests to explore creativity? Am I getting am I taking a goddamn exam? Am I taking the SAT or something what that? The researchers utilized capsules containing 0.7 grams of psilocybin truffles. They estimate this to equal a microdose of around 1.5 milligrams of psilocybin active. Full doses of pure psilocybin used in clinical research are often between 20 and 30 milligrams. I don't know about those. I'm only experienced in the actual mushroom itself. Corresponding author of the study, blah, 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 says his team found no tangible differences in participants comparing the periods they were psilocybin microdosing and the periods they were given placebo. Now, to me, it sounds like they were probably giving the people the microdoses, but, again, very small amounts. Not sub-perceptual, but, sub-perceptual. Now, again, it all depends on the dosage, and it also, there's tolerance to a thing. If you're dosing, every day, or once every 3 days, you're going to build up a tolerance, so you need to actually build that into your dosing. Interestingly, the study reports depression scores improved from baseline to block 1 regardless of whether a participant was randomized to placebo or psilocybin in the first block. That's a big thing with depression is, just a matter of mindset. If you think something's going to work, That's like 90% of the battle. Like, if you think something is gonna work, boom, you're almost there. Like, you're literally like 10 minutes away from being home. So, can keep going here. I'm trying to look. I'm scanning. Psilocybin microdosing may still play a role, but it is good to remain cautious on using it in practice, as it might also have unwanted side effects. Van Elk tells News Atlas, if anything, most studies show that psychedelics hamper rather than facilitate performance, so I don't expect microdosing to have any beneficial effect on me. I think these people don't know what the hell they're talking about. As far as creativity is concerned, now again, I'm just going off of my own personal experience here, but as far as creativity is concerned, like, I don't, like, how do you test creativity? Like, if I were going into a lab and, like, talking to a doctor, and the doctor was like, here, like, fucking paint me a fucking picture of a goddamn, like, oak tree or something, like, I feel like I wouldn't be able to perform that well regardless of whether or not I'm on a drug of some kind, right? But if I'm, like, like, doing something that I genuinely have interest doing, like if I were, like, I don't know, if I was drawing on my own time in my own space, I would be more creative. It's all about context here. So I don't know. I'm not too big on these studies that keep coming out that have like these big headlines. Like, there's no difference between anything, and also like the criteria is really bizarre. So anyway, I'm not convinced. Not convinced, folks. I'm not convinced. I am pro microdosing, I say, but also I am against doing drugs. I think drugs are bad for you. And if you do drugs, they will melt your brain, and your mom will be very disappointed in you. But my mom's dead, so I can do as many drugs as I want. But again, everyone, do your own thing.